Hi, welcome to Intro to Prototype Spatial Design in Maquette. This tutorial is brought to you by XR for Designers, a place where you can learn everything about XR design if you're a designer. Let's get started. So, after today's tutorial, you will learn the background of XR prototyping, XR, spatial design, VR, AR, however you call it, all things related to displaying 3D stuff in a spatial way. Also, you can learn how to set up your environment for your first maquette project. We have 4 topics to cover in order to teach you those 2 things. 1, the landscape of prototyping for spatial design. What are other tools available? What can you do with them? Second, what is maquette? When to use it? I want to introduce this amazing VR prototyping tool to you to make you think more, think faster, and do faster. And third, you will learn how to set up maquette on your machine. And the last but not the least, we'll do a short intro to interfaces and tools in maquette just to get you started. So today's episode is about the landscape of prototyping for spatial design. We have Sketchbox, we have Unity, we have maquette, we have Moment, we have Wild, we have all kinds of tools. How to choose when to use them. So generally speaking, we can separate VR and XR design into 3 tiers in terms of their finish. So the first one is low fidelity. In low fidelity, you want to test your core idea. And then core idea means the fundamental of your app. Say you want to make an app that people watch movies in VR. Do people enjoy this idea? Do people think this is a dumb idea? You have to test that thing first. This low-fidelity prototyping does not necessarily require VR, so you don't have to put on a VR headset, open a game engine. You can totally prototype that with a paper. This is an example of low-fidelity prototyping. In this image, you can see how I'm positioned within all these 3D content. How do I use my control? You can use all these physical ways to understand how to use your app. And then we have mid-fidelity. In mid-fidelity, you want to test your core information. Let's keep the example. You want to make a VR movie app. The prototype you're building should let people understand this is a movie app rather than, let's say, a sport app. So the core information will really communicate those. You want to test if they can do that. Also, you want to have some higher level visual design, meaning you want to understand where is your button, how does your button look, how does your 3D content look, to give your audience a basic understanding the vibe of your app. And also you want to test some basic interactions. Here are 2 examples. Here are 2 examples that I have from my previous experience of mid-fidelity prototype. So this is one of my app prototype called Focus. It helps people meditate. So you can see what I did was just placing some static pictures or sky map to give you a sense of where you're at and what you're looking at. One of the features of the app is to display your keynotes and to have a focused area for you to think about them, remember them. I have a feature to turn everything else other than the content you're trying to focus on to black and white. So this is mid to low, low to mid fidelity prototype. This is a totally mid fidelity prototype, which as you can see, has more visual detail about where things are at, the text, the color. And then we have the last one, the high fidelity prototype. When doing a high fidelity prototype, you always want to have a goal. You want to test whether the text is big enough, whether the content is clear or not, whether the interaction is intuitive or not. In this high fidelity prototyping, you also want to test ergonomics, meaning is the audience comfortable doing what you want them to do, reading text, sitting down or playing or moving around. You don't want to make them dizzy or feeling uncomfortable. You also want to test detailed visual interactions. So here are 2 examples.
We also found that everybody really likes throwing things in VR.
So this is a video from the Daydream team showing you a prototype of the Daydream. you can see the visual is not that detailed, but all the mechanism of the game, the throwing, using the bottle, the picking up, they're all working. So in terms of interaction, this is high fidelity. And then here is another example of a video list in the VR. So in this case, you can see very polished animation, very polished interface. So this is another way of saying high fidelity. Visually speaking, it's very, very detailed. It's very high fidelity. So after seeing all these different tiers, these are some of the tools available for you right now to build these prototypes. You have paper, you have 2D design tools like Sketch and Figma, you have Tilt Brush, which is a VR tool, but you cannot necessarily draw really accurate lines and position things accurately to each other. So I say it's still low fidelity, but you can create 3D stuff. You have A-Frame, which allows you to build web VR experiences and test it really quickly. You cannot necessarily do high fidelity because this tool does not have the capability to handle very complex meshes. Then you have Sketchbox. Sketchbox is a tool that is really close to maquette, but it does not handle very precise object manipulation or object reuse. But the cool thing about Sketchbox is that you can do multi-user, collaborative design or review. Lower than that, you have maquette. You can actually use maquette to build really high fidelity things. I'll explain how you can do that later. And next to that, you have Unity XR Editor. It's a tool that allows you to edit your unit project in VR, which is really cool. And at the very bottom, you have Unity Unreal. These are the tools that you use to build your real app. You can use them to build a prototype, so I put them here. And after that, I have a list that you can just scroll through to see all the great VR experience out there to understand what is going on right now if you have a VR headset. These are some of the very best experience you can find on VR, not only games, but also general apps that allows you to do drawing, animation. So just click into one and download one, you will start to understand what are some really good interaction and visual design out there. So that's our first episode, the landscape of VR design. To wrap it up, you can always go to this website, app.ludus.one/maquette01 to see the full presentation.